Hi everyone and welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in to our first episode of Coastal Conservation Online. This is where we're going to start to introduce you to some of our primary coastal and marine conservation partners around South Africa, namely Two Oceans Aquarium Education Foundation, Marine Dynamics, Dye Island Conservation Trust, Nature's Valley Trust, and more. So tonight, we're very excited for this first episode to be joined by Tally from the Two Oceans Aquarium Education Foundation, which is going to be talking all about turtles. So she's going to join us in a minute, but just to set the scene, if you're watching, wherever you're watching from in the world, you can get involved by posting your questions and comments in the reply and comment section of where you're watching this from. There might also be a little raffle at the end of this live stream, depending on how interactive everyone is. And I'll give you instructions as we go throughout the live stream. So the first half of this live stream will be joined by Tally, who's going to do a little presentation and talk to us about some turtle rehabilitation at the Two Oceans Aquarium. And then we're going to bring on board one of our ambassadors from the University of Edinburgh, who's going to join us with some questions from herself and her members. And then we're open to take some questions from the audience. So send those in as soon as you can think of any turtle related questions. Start posting those whenever you're ready right now. If you're watching us on replay, you can still get involved by posting your questions and comments, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Really excited to get involved with this. Start us off by telling us in the comments where in the world you're watching this from, just so we can get a sense of who our audience is. And we'd love to get to know you over the course of all of these live streams. For episode 1, we're really excited to welcome Tally in a minute. But before that, let's get you warmed up with a little turtle video. So check this out. Tally, hello. Thank you so much for joining. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
Really, really excited about this. Turtles is such a topic that we get asked about so much. Everyone loves turtles. So, I mean, I don't think we can go wrong. You're in good hands tonight, I think, to get some good questions and have lots of enthusiasm from everyone watching, I would think.
Yes, I'm very excited. I love talking about turtles. So I think it'll be good fun.
So tell me, first of all, about your day. What have you been up to today? How's work been? What's happening at Two Oceans?
Today's been good. Every day is different and busy. Today is Tuesday health round, so every little turtle hatchling gets its checkup. We also did some really cool x-rays today. So there was a lot of focus on animal health and blood tests and that kind of thing. But very productive. Our turtles are healthy at the moment for the most part, so that's good.
Cool. Well, I'm so excited. This is episode 1, and we can start to dive into some of these topics and then chat to you. And yeah, just really, really excited. Just a reminder to everyone watching, you can post your questions from any time now. If you've got any turtle-related questions, start to get them in now so that we can aim to answer them while we're live. If you're watching this on replay, as I mentioned before, you can still post your questions and comments, and we obviously try and get back to that as soon as we can. But for now, Tally, I believe you're going to show a little presentation, and you're going to talk through a few things with us.
Yes. So it's a big treat for me to be able to talk about turtles, something I'm very, very passionate and excited about.
Okay.
And it's something that has been with me since I was a very little girl. I grew up wanting to be a mermaid and really wanting to kind of just live in the ocean. And I'm very lucky that I now get to work for the Two Oceans Aquarium Foundation for Ocean Action, based in Cape Town, where we get to do amazing conservation work. But as I mentioned, it's been a passion I've had for a long time. This is a special turtle named Sandy, who I got to be part of the rehab of. She got hit by a boat and had bad injuries on her shell, which sort of healed very slowly over time. But it's an incredible privilege to be able to engage with just these incredible, resilient creatures every day and be part of their rehab. And growing up feeling so in love with the sea, it has been the most natural and the most beautiful thing to be able to take that to the next level into conservation, because you protect what you love. And so sharing the stories of our turtles is something that inspires me to continue to protect what I love, and hopefully inspires many other people to do the same. But let's get into the turtle side of things, and start out with just a little bit of a global context. So for those who don't know, there are 7 species of sea turtle in the world. All of those are threatened to some degree. Now, in South Africa, we see 5 of those species, and 2 of those nest on our coastline. So we have the leatherback, which you can see in the top left, and the loggerhead in the top right. And every year they nest on the northeastern coastline of South Africa. And then we have 3 other species that visit our coastline: the green turtle, the hawksbill turtle, and the olive ridley turtle. And so we do occasionally, because they visit the coastline, we do occasionally see them in our rehab facility as well. Now, as I mentioned, there's 2 species that nest on the coastline, and because those 2 nest, we therefore get those little hatchlings on our coastline as well. But let me tell you a little bit more about our specific context in Cape Town, which is at the southern tip of Africa, where our rehabilitation facility is located. Now, the Turtle Rehab Program is a part of the Two Oceans Aquarium, which is a remarkable aquarium that exists to educate and inspire, and really show off the diversity that we have along the South African coastline. We have the East Coast with lots of warm, beautiful currents and small fish and a whole sort of coral ecosystem. And we have the West Coast with all the kelp forests and the silvery fish. And so we have all of this diversity where these 2 kind of oceans meet. And we are situated on the roof of the aquarium. Our dream and our goal is to build a turtle hospital, a standalone facility that people can come to visit. But right now, we are sort of located on the roof area of the aquarium, and that's what you can see in this picture. You see 2 blue covered areas. The center one is the top of one of our large exhibits, and then on the right-hand side, under that blue cover, is where most of our turtle work happens. So currently in that space, we have 78 turtles in that space, which is pretty remarkable, and really, really quite a cool thing for us. Now, being based in Cape Town and at the southern tip of Africa brings with it a remarkable set of opportunities. We are at the southern tip. We have these hatchlings that come down in the coastline. We have these visiting species of turtle, but we also have big southerly winter storms that come from, Antarctica, and we have lots of challenges that come with trying to keep warm water in a space that is in the middle of winter, for example. That's something we deal with every year. But it's really quite a privilege, and we are able to rehabilitate anywhere between 20 and over 200 turtles a year. Many of those are hatchlings that have hatched on the northeastern coastline. They've drifted down in the warm current, and they've been spat out of that current. And when they get spat out, they are cold, they go into thermal shock, they have dehydration and injury, and then they strand on our beaches. And through a rescue community, a network of people, volunteers, those little turtles are brought to us, and we then are able to rehabilitate them. And then throughout the year, we get larger turtles that strand due to various injuries. Sometimes they've just got infections and pneumonia. Oftentimes they've ingested plastic, or they've been stranded in ghost fishing gear, or been hit by a boat. And so there are various issues that they face and issues that we try and help to fix. And once these turtles are healed and healthy and well, they're released back into the wild. And that is the goal for every single turtle that comes into our facility. I am tonight going to share 3 little story nuggets with you, because really I could go on for a very long time talking about lots of different things with turtles. But I thought to give you a bit of an overview and a snapshot of some of the exciting things, I would share with you 3 little specific stories. And the first is the story of a hatchling. I've mentioned that these little hatchlings emerge from the nests on the northeastern coastline. The time where they emerge, they are so small they can fit into the palm of your hand. And they are remarkable. They face many threats at this stage. They are like popcorn to creatures in the sea. And they sort of experience a very high mortality rate at this young age as well. Only 1 to 2% actually reach maturity. But when they swim out to sea, they are kind of overcome by this like urgent drive to just swim. And so they just swim and swim until they reach that warm current, and then the current pulls them down, which is warm and fast. And as I mentioned, when they reach our south coast, they get spat out, and our amazing rescue community helps to rescue them from the beaches and bring them to us. And when they arrive at our facility, they are so small. They often are just really skinny. You can see with this little turtle in particular around its neck, it's really skinny. It's very flat looking. And it is, very cold, dehydrated, probably ingested plastic and not doing very well. But it doesn't take long before these little turtles turn around. And it is remarkable to see how with warm water, with good medical care, with some food, they very quickly regain their strength and start to heal and grow. Their shells start to get nice and hard, and their little personalities start to shine. It's very, very sweet. They behave much like little puppies would, chasing their tails and biting their own bubbles and trying to dive and then bouncing back up. So it is a real treat to see how they are able to recover in such a remarkable way, a testament to their amazing resilience. And this is particularly sort of notable considering the amount of plastic these turtles have ingested. This season, we've had 155 turtles that have stranded, and we've had almost 500 pieces of plastic ingested by these turtles. And that really is just quite remarkable. Little pieces of microplastic that can perforate their gut, that are often very difficult to pass and can cause blockages. And so their ability to recover is therefore even more remarkable. And once these little turtles are big and strong, so there you can see they're no longer the size, they no longer fit in the palm of your hand, they're the size of your hand. They're released back into the ocean where they belong and have a second chance of life. We make sure that they are extra boosted with lots of sort of supplements, and that their shell is hard, and that they've got a good fat reserve on them as they head out back to sea. So that's a remarkable story of a little hatchling, and it happens every year. This year we've, as I mentioned, had 155 of these little guys, and it's been a real treat to be able to look after them. Now, another very cool story, a very interesting story, is about a slightly large turtle, but also a loggerhead. So the same as the little hatchlings, this is a large female loggerhead. Her name is Nubomvu. Nubomvu is a Xhosa word, and it means red. And that's because when Nubomvu came to our facility, she was a very red color, which was a little bit unusual for a loggerhead, but very beautiful. And she had stranded in the fishing net you can see behind her in that photo. 50 kilograms of fishing net, and Nubomvu herself only weighed 50 kilograms. And so she came to our facility very, very weak, very, very tired, and in quite a lot of pain. So we were able to help her warm up and help her feel a little bit better with pain medication. And it was lovely to see how she started responding and doing better. But something that is important to know when you're working with turtles is that when they're out at sea and they are trying to survive, they shut down any non-vital organs or systems. And what that means is that any infections they might have out at sea also shut down. So when we give them a nice warm environment and lots of food, we help them feel better. Not only do we help the turtle to feel better, but along comes the infection as well. And so a couple months after being with us and doing really well, we realized that Nubomvu was struggling with a really bad bone infection, and it had kind of systemically gone through her body. What it was primarily focusing on her right elbow. And one of the amazing diagnostic tools we use is X-ray and CT scans, and I'm going to show you some now. So this is her inner CT machine. It's quite funny. We take them to human hospitals to be scanned, where we have to lift them up and carry them through the waiting rooms and then place them on the machine. But it really does give us some remarkable imagery. So what you see here are her two front elbows, really. The blue circle part is the elbow. And these are two separate x-rays that have been placed next to each other. And generally an elbow, all bones, as you can see in the slightly more peripheral bones, should be nice and rounded and kind of a little bit whitish. But you see that there is some real degradation of both her elbows on her left and right side. And this has been something that Nobamvu has been struggling with for the last year. She's been on multiple courses of antibiotics, which has led to quite a lot of sort of secondary issues and fungal infections as well. And she's just been a really, really sick girl. But she's kept going. She has a phenomenal appetite, currently loving squid. We have observations that we do 3 times a day. She's got a team that absolutely loves her and cares for her. And we have all the hope in the world that she is going to fully recover. But it is remarkable because we've been treating her for over a year now. And the thing with turtles is that sometimes their rehab journeys are slow and long. And Nobamvu is a real trooper and an example of the length of rehab and also the fight that these turtles have, the patience they have to endure not only their injuries, but then also the rehab that it requires, which is just something that, yeah, it's inspiring. So that's Nobamvu, who's still very much under our care. The vet is going to come tomorrow and going to have a look at her and actually put a needle into that left elbow to see exactly what the bacteria is that's causing that trouble there. So yes. And the last little story that I want to share with you is quite a famous one. It's the story of Yoshi. Now, I saw in, there was a question somewhere about the longest turtle in our rehab. And Yoshi has been the longest turtle who's been in our care. Yoshi was with us for 20 years, a remarkable length of time. She came in as a baby turtle. Here you can see just a few kilograms. And when she left, she was a remarkable giant. She weighed 183 kilograms. And she was ready for the sea. Her recovery process was quite long because she'd been in a kind of fairly small or captive sort of space for a long period of time. She needed to do a lot of exercise to get fit for the ocean. She needed to lose a little bit of weight and get those lengths in. So we started training with her and making her sort of swim a lot. And then we put a really lovely satellite tag onto her and released her off Cape Town, off the southern tip of Africa. And we monitored and observed where she went. And what ensued were 3 years of just the most remarkable tracking of turtle. And it's a record, the longest time where a sea turtle has been tracked. And let's see what she did. So here you can see Yoshi went all the way up the west coast of Africa till she got to Angola. Then she turned around and came all the way down, headed down into the Southern Ocean and across the entire Indian Ocean before making home in Australia. And in fact, it turns out that she is an Australian turtle. The last few months of tracking her, she was in the same kind of space, and she'd found a sort of a subpopulation of loggerhead turtles that were all in kind of the similar waters. And so she was with them. And what is really cool is that the Australian government didn't know about this population of turtles. And so Yoshi helped them sort of discover it, which is really, really cool. And so we tracked Yoshi for over 1,000 days. We tracked her for over 40,000 kilometers, and she traveled on average 40 kilometers a day. She really is quite a remarkable legend. So a very, very special story. There have been amazing storybooks written about her, and even though Yoshi's tag isn't pinging anymore, the education that she brought to us, the sort of the remembering that turtles they don't belong to any country. They are ocean travelers. They cross ocean basins and seas, and they link up. And so what that requires for us, and what's exciting about that, is that we have to work on a global level to protect them. It doesn't help if we just do it in one place of the earth. We need to work across with the UK because there's turtles going like all the way up the Atlantic Ocean. We need to work with our partners in Australia. And this is something that's really exciting, is that understanding and learning about turtles through tracking them allows us to understand their pathways and allows us to protect them better. And tracking turtles is a treat. It's a real treat. And here you can see some of the squiggles, some of the tracks of some of the different turtles we've tracked over the last couple of years. Yoshi was the white squiggle, but we've had quite a lot of turtles head up the west coast towards the mid of the Atlantic, or up the east coast towards Mozambique. And it's just very exciting. It's exciting to learn, and it really helps us when it comes to figuring out how to look after them past release, how to look after their home. So that's a little bit about some of the work we do. There's such a range, from very specific medical skills to technological development and growth, to designing and building a turtle hospital, to the on-the-ground care for the little baby hatchlings every day. And as I've mentioned through my stories, these turtles teach us. They teach us just a remarkable amount of life skills. They teach us strength and patience. They teach us perseverance and growth and healing. And it is therefore really wonderful to be able to share turtle stories as turtles as ambassadors, and then to become ambassadors alongside them as we share their stories as well. So that's it from me. Are there any questions?
Wow. I mean, that Yoshi story is just absolutely incredible. Thanks so much for that, Tali. Absolutely, really just fascinating. And I guess it's important just to tell everyone that this presentation, we're just kind of setting the scene. There's obviously a lot more that we can sort of dive into over, in future live streams and talks and everything. But Tali's job today is really, I guess, as she's done so brilliantly, is just setting that scene, some of the work and some of the turtle patients that she's involved with. But thank you so much. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring on Emma from University of Edinburgh. And she's going to join us and ask a couple of questions that she's got from herself and her members. And then if you guys have got any other questions in the audience, if you want to send them, make sure you post them in the comments of where you're watching this from. But also very important, if you are watching on a Facebook group, then you need to grant StreamYard permission to see your name. Otherwise, it'll just come up as Facebook user for us. So I'll post a little link here just to show you how to do that once again. So there we go. If you're watching it on Facebook, before leaving a comment, just make sure you grant StreamYard permission to see your name by going streamyard.com/Facebook, and you just have to click on sort of grant permission, and then next time you post a question, your name will actually come up. Otherwise, what we get is situation like this, and we can't see who that is. So unfortunately, we can't reference you when we're asking the question. Okay, so let's bring Emma on, and then we can get stuck in. I suppose that's the easy bit you've done now, Tali. Now we got the hard bit, some tricky questions coming in. Hey, Emma, thank you so much for joining. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. How are you guys?
Cool. Can hardly hear you. Maybe just speak a little bit louder if you can. Can hear you very faintly. Maybe just tell us where you're from and what you're up to at the moment.
So I'm from the University of Edinburgh and the Dick Vet Wildlife Conservation Society, and I've just started third year, so we're into week 3 of term now, and yeah, very excited to be here.
Perfect. No, thanks so much for joining. So you've got some questions that you sort of pre-prepared, and probably best just to dive straight into those, and then yeah, you guys can have a little chat. So let me pop up the first one that's come up from you, and you can read that to Tali.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, you said today that you did the health checks on the turtles and they're all healthy at the moment, but what biosecurity protocols do you have in place to reduce the risk of infectious disease at the aquarium?
Yeah, that's a huge component of of what we do. The reason the turtles are looking good at the moment is because we have such strict biosecurity rules. Um, I mean, these little turtles come in and they're carrying infections and fungi and all sorts of things that we don't even understand, but also they're incredibly immunocompromised. So they're very susceptible to transferring and receiving infections. So what we've got in place is, I mean, the most important thing for a turtle is the environment it lives in, and that's the water. So we focus really on making sure the water is really clean and sterilized. So every week the water is continuously being sterilized, but then every week we do 100% water change where we drop all the water out, sterilize the sort of the tanks themselves, and then refill it up. And then we also have biosecurity protocols in and out of the spaces, so limited access, always walking through footbaths, always wearing gloves when handling the turtles, and then always disinfecting when handling between turtles, because we can be the biggest transmitters if we sort of handle one and then physically transmit something onto another turtle. So the biosecurity makes or breaks the rehab completely. And we've learned this the hard way through not having them in place initially, and have really, really seen the benefit of just maintaining this level of care and awareness. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. So as a vet student, and I know we've got some other vets, at least from Edinburgh, watching, what are the main roles of the vets at the aquarium?
So that's a really cool question. We do have an in-house vet at the aquarium. He is a wildlife vet, and he deals with all sorts of different things, with interesting shark stuff and fish stuff and snakes and all sorts. But we also have a dedicated turtle vet who has her own exotic practice in Cape Town, and then liaises with us continuously and comes in weekly for site visits. So the health checks, for example, I would do with my team, and we would continuously be reporting behavioral observations and notes to the vets, doing the sort of x-rays and that kind of work. And then when she comes in, she just sort of checks on the key turtles that require care. But the nice thing about turtles is that no one knows anything really. So there's a huge community of sharing information and knowledge. That's true nationally. So the vets in South Africa the turtle vets in South Africa are continuously sharing information, but also internationally. We work closely with vets in Australia and America and all over the world on interesting cases, or if we have a question, and that's really nice. So there's a very sharing and kind of figuring out together spirit when it comes to a lot of the kind of veterinary and medical care for turtles.
Awesome. So we got some questions coming in from the audience, so we'll come back to some of your questions in a second, Emma. But we got a few coming in that we'll just sort of intersperse here. One from Tiger, who says, how long does the tracker that is put on the turtles usually last for? Can it affect the turtles in any ways?
So the length of time depends on a couple things. Firstly, the size of the tracker. The bigger the tracker, the longer the battery, but the size of the tracker is dependent on the size of the turtle. So smaller turtles can only host a smaller tag. The battery, 3 years for Yoshi was a record. The general time is generally between 6 months to a year. But if a turtle is quite young and still growing, then the tag will likely fall off sooner. Also, certain species like the green turtle, they excrete a bit of an oil off their skin, and this can make the tag fall off sooner. Sometimes they'll scratch it off. So they really are, it's very hit and miss. But 6 months to a year is a good time frame. And in terms of the effect on the turtle, there's a very strict kind of ratio in terms of the weight of the tag to the size of the turtle. And the tags have been really beautifully designed so that they are super hydrodynamic and don't impact in any way on turtle sort of behaviors and movements. And on the one hand, it's kind of impossible to tell because we don't get to see them with their tag on. But the movements we have seen are very normal and very good behaviors. And there's many turtles that have been seen with tags on in the wild that are able to do all of their natural behaviors. So I think that the turtles are fine.
Sure, you're inspiring some great questions here, Tali. Are you happy to keep going? Because they're coming through thick and fast now.
Roll them.
Okay, here we go. So Ellie says, are there any species-specific differences in the husbandry of particular turtle types while in hospital? Are there some species that are more or less vulnerable to disease?
100%. So it's almost like working with different animals. Green turtles, loggerheads, hawksbills, they've all got, there's so many differences. But when it comes to medication, for example, they all have different levels of resistance to different levels of medication. So you have to have very species-specific medications. In terms of husbandry, diet is a big thing. Initially, we'll try and get them all onto a protein diet to help sort of them in their strength, but then we'll move a green turtle onto a herbivorous diet. We'll move a loggerhead onto a diet that's got more crustaceans in it. And so we'll really try to replicate the wild-like behaviors. With each turtle that we get, we ask ourselves, what is this turtle at this size and with this species going to be doing in the wild at this life stage? And then we'll try and replicate that. Whether it's diet or environment, a turtle could be pelagic, floating out at sea, eating what's on the surface. That's the case with our hatchlings. Or it could be a 5-year-old green turtle that's foraging along the coastline. So completely different requirements for them. The one thing that we generally keep quite stable are the temperatures. Turtles generally do well in warmer temperatures. So especially for the initial rehab, they'll be in water that's around 25 degrees. And the biosecurity and the sterileness of the space is also maintained across species. But otherwise, it's not only species-specific, it's individual-specific. So you might have a turtle like Nabamvu, who I spoke about, she went through a phase of only eating pilchard, and so she only got pilchard because that's all she wanted to eat. And then she shifted over to squid, and now she only wants squid. And hawksbills are very fussy eaters. So it's also very individual specific and the personality of each little turtle. Yeah. Cool.
Okay. So Emma, let's get back to some of your great questions over here. Here's another one from you.
So this question is, when they are released, how long can the journey to the turtle release site take, and how do you ensure their welfare during transportation?
Also an amazing question. We release turtles in multiple ways. One of the more routine ways we do here in Cape Town is we drive them about half an hour to a harbor. We take them out on a boat and we take them about 2 hours south into the warm current. During that process, we transport them in individual little containers that have air holes for breathing, and we try and keep the sort of temperature and the environment as stable and sort of continuous as possible. We also always pad the bottom of the space they're lying in with something soft. Turtles are designed to be in water, so when they've got all of their weight and gravity on their plastron, their belly, that can cause injury occasionally. So we try and make sure that's soft, and then we'll release them into the water that way. But we also fly turtles. We've recently flew 3 turtles to different locations in South Africa for release. And that's quite exciting. They flew in style in a small little private plane. But sometimes we even transport turtles on normal commercial flights. So we try and keep it below 3,000 meters. And we also, depending on the turtle and the environment, will seek out expert input in terms of what to do. But we'll keep the environment and the temperature stable. We'll try and keep the environment dark and just really kind of allow them to be as calm as possible, because it's a stressful experience for them. So there's lots of different methods of transportation. And yeah, maintaining the welfare just also requires being there. So making sure there's someone who knows what's supposed to be the kind of the space at all times with the turtles.
That's really interesting. I didn't realize you could put turtles on a plane.
Yeah. So when they go on commercial planes, they sit where the dogs and cats sit, actually. So we kind of tape them up and we make sure that everything is stable, and then they sit beneath the pilots, which I think is quite sweet. So the pilots get to keep an eye on them. Yeah.
Have you ever experienced problems with like turbulence or anything when they're on a plane?
So not really, but I think that's mainly because we've only done like flights that have been maximum 2.5 hours long. There was a translocation of one of our larger turtles on a smaller plane, that she was also accompanied by one of our team members, and yeah, he said it was a little bit harrowing. They went up and down, but I think he was more scarred by the experience than the turtle was. So I think that they're usually all right. Yeah.
Cool. So my next question is, so the stranded hatchlings are often dehydrated when they come to you, and how do you go about treating that?
So turtles are remarkable. Even though they live in salt water, they drink that salt water if they're feeling healthy, and they can excrete that excess salt. But when they're weak, what we do is we put them directly into fresh water. They don't have to work as hard. They can absorb the fresh water through their skin. But what we also often see is that you put them into that fresh water and they actively start drinking. They open their mouths and they like gulp it in. At this point, you'll often see sand kind of coming out of their mouth because they've been lying on beaches. And that's a really, really nice way to hydrate them without stressing them. It's always a fine balance with the turtle because the stress has such a negative impact on them that you're always trying to find the least stressful way of doing something. And freshwater baths are just the most lovely, low stress thing because you just have to put them in it. More invasive, but also more quick acting. So for turtles that come in that are very, very weak, we'll put them on a drip. So we'll put them on a drip either into their coelomic cavity, so that it goes into the space but like under their shell, between their organs, and they can absorb it. Or if they really are in a very bad way, we'll give them IV. And that really helps to perk them up quite quickly. And so they'll often, in the first few weeks of rehab, they'll often get daily, depending on how bad they are, daily or very regular freshwater baths and fluids. Yeah. And
speaking of like putting an IV in, how do you get IV access in a turtle?
So I love talking about blood stuff. The primary way on a turtle is actually in their neck. So if you pull, so they're not like tortoises. Tortoises can really withdraw entirely their head into their shell. Turtles can't do that, thank goodness. It makes blood drawing much easier. But you can actually extend their head, and then you sort of have their entire neck. And in their neck, you can see these two sort of muscles. And in between the muscles, they have a really nice vein. And they have actually a little bolus, so a little cavity with blood in it. And so there's multiple ways of accessing. You can go sort of to the side of it, but it's generally in the middle of the neck. And so you always have someone extending the neck and holding it still. And then you can draw blood that way, or access the vein that way to give fluids. Also, another thing is that species specific. Green turtles are so difficult to get blood from, whereas loggerheads are much easier. So it's like, funny.
Should we give you a little break and play one of those videos that we've got pre-prepared? Are there any of them in particular that you'd like us to show, Tally?
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to. You can do Yoshi's video?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, check this out, everyone. Thank you.
You'll turn her so she's facing head first. Unstrap everything, and then you're gonna have to hold on the back of her. Hold here. Okay, lift the legs. You guys ready? 1, 2, 3, up. Okay, turn us. Probably is gonna be close. Let's get this forward. Is that blue thing tied to the? Everything's tied, huh? Okay. shift her forward a bit. All her weight's on my leg.
Yeah.
Just a little bit forward. Okay.
Okay, right fins out the bag.
Yeah, you guys all ready? Or should we count this down?
No, I'm not ready.
Okay, let's wait for this wave. Watch your wave. Okay, on this next one. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, Yoshi!
Off you go, straight in under the props. Off you go.
Happy with that operation, Kevin?
Very happy, yeah. It went well. She apparently hit about 5 meters and then just bolted off east. So keep an eye out. Hopefully she'll surface around here and we can maybe follow her a little bit, but I don't think so. I think she's gone.
Jumped in, went down 2 or 3 meters and disappeared in a flash, boy. You just couldn't keep up. She's too quick.
Hopefully she will be seen.
Where do you expect her to head?
I have absolutely no idea. I mean, we've had turtles head both east and west from here, so it all depends on where they're from. So we have to wait and see. We're going to do the babies now. Give to Tracy.
Little did the team know that Yoshi's journey would be east and west and a lot more.
Yeah. It's always
Absolutely.
very special watching those and then seeing, I mean, it all kind of a lot of hard work towards one point when you release them. And so there's always this incredible energy for that. But yeah, we've had to watch lots of different Yoshi videos regularly and doing presentations, and I always get emotional and like because it's just remarkable to see how phenomenal she's done and how amazing she's been. It's very
I can
cool.
imagine. It's probably such a mixed bag of emotions on a day like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we got a couple more questions, and just to remind everyone where the clock is ticking because we've got load shedding approaching fast in South Africa. And for those of you that don't know what load shedding is in South Africa, it's planned electricity cuts and power outs, which means that in about 15 minutes time, electricity is going to get cut where Tally is. So we need to move quick with the questions and wrap up as fast as we can. But thank you so much for all the questions you've done so far. So we got another one here from Emma. Let's pop that on the screen for you, Emma.
So at any one time, how many turtles might you actually have in the aquarium that you're rehabilitating? And I mean, you've obviously spoken about Yoshi now, but what some of the longer term residents, how long have they been there for?
So the largest amount of turtles we had was in 2019. We got to 227. It was a rough period, but yeah, that was beyond our capacity, both in terms of team and space. Generally, we're able to space-wise cope with about 100 hatchlings, and then about between 10 to 15 sub-adult or adults. So that was hectic. In that scenario, we actually took a whole lot of them and the strongest ones, and we flew them up to Durban, to Shaka, another aquarium that also does turtle rehab, and they continued their rehab there because we couldn't keep them going. And then we've also got another turtle that's been with us now for 8 years, Bob. He's a very special turtle. And the reason he's been with us for so long is that he's had neurological damage. And so his recovery has required an intensive amount of environmental enrichment to increase his wild behaviors. And it's been just remarkable to see how it's worked. And so now after 8 years of rehab, we're finally seeing his end days of rehab approaching. And we're looking forward to, in the next 6 months or so to being able to release him, which is particularly special. So it's always really nice, even if one's not certain. Like with Bob, there were many times where I was like, I don't actually know if Bob's ever going to be releasable. But let's still work towards it because that's the only option. And it's amazing to see them get to that point. And I think what's also important to remember with turtles is they only reach sexual maturity in their 20s or 30s, and they live to often over 80, which means that even if it takes 10, 15 years, Bob has not even reached sexual maturity yet. So to be able to now get him to the point of release, he's still got decades of sort of being able to contribute to his population. And so that's a very special thing for us to continuously remember with our rehab. It's not like, oh, they're reaching the end of their life now. He's still got most of his life ahead of them. And that's also a real motivation. It's like he could never spend the rest of his life in this space. It's too small for a turtle. They need to be in the ocean. Yeah.
Awesome. Just a reminder to everyone to, if you're watching, type in #TAPTurtles into the comments sort of reply section of where you're watching this from, and you'll be entered into a little giveaway at the end of this. We do need a certain amount of people to run this giveaway, so keep typing those in, just like Tiger's done there, #TAPTurtles. Anyone who's watching this can type that in, and I'll contact you afterwards with a little prize for the winner. But we will do a draw in a minute, providing we have enough people that enter that little thing. So make sure you type in #TapEllies. Okay, so we got another question here. Let me just get back to it. From Emma. There we go, Emma.
So this is kind of leading on from the last one. So for your longer term residents like Yoshi and Bob, like how do you provide enrichment for them during their stay?
It's difficult. You have to become very creative because they're in a space that they're very comfortable in. So it's very easy for them to fall into very patterned behaviors. We're lucky that we get to use one of our large exhibits that has rock work and other animals. And so that's always engaging for them. But we have an amazing enrichment team who have to continuously think up different ways. One of the things they do is obstacle courses. So to try and change up the physical space, they'll actually create boundaries and barriers that the turtles have to swim through them. Turtles are also very sensory. So providing things like we have a shower head and then we rain water down, and they get to sort of feel that, and also very different ways of feeding them. They're very food motivated, so sort of continuously having different food types and making them swim lengths and get food. So it's a continuous, and then they'll sometimes do very well and be very engaging in one and then less in the other. So it's a continuous process and requires continuous adjustment and changing and not staying too routine. So keeping it spicy for them. Yeah, but it is tricky when it's a long period of time. Yeah.
And I have another question, full of them. So I actually worked with turtles this summer, and one of the ones that I saw had a healed boat propeller injury, and you mentioned that in your presentation at the start. So I was just wondering, like, how common is it to see those sorts of injuries, and are there any other really common things that come in or unusual things that are of interest?
So in my 6 years, I've seen 3 boat injuries. Only one of those has been a turtle that survived, and that was Sandy. And that was just the most remarkable thing to witness because, I mean, the shell had broken and you could see her sort of her muscle lift as she was breathing. It was really quite frightening. But all the dead tissue and bone eventually kind of fell away and fresh tissue grew, and that tissue then hardened and became shell. So it was remarkable to see the process of healing. But we see quite a few amputations, so quite a few turtles coming in that have only got 3 flippers. And what's remarkable is that those turtles have all lost their flippers and recovered from that in the wild. That's not what's brought them in. Those turtles are always the biggest fighters and the most sort of strong-willed turtles. We see, I think the most common sort of injury really, unfortunately, is plastic ingestion and the secondary impacts of that, whether it's gut compaction, so like gut blockages, or gut perforation, or lots of different sort of things that I think are secondary to that. Also, sometimes the that just makes them, the compaction and stuff makes them feel really bad. And so they're on the surface floating for a long time. And then when storms come, they get injuries to their body from being hit around on rocks. And so there's lots of like bumps and bruises and smaller injuries they often come in with. And then we've had a few that have also stranded in fishing nets. That's about it. I can't think offhand of any other sort of very unusual strandings that we've had. Although, no, I'm lying. There was a turtle, a hatchling though, that was once found on the roof of a building that a seagull or a bird had picked up and then dropped on the roof of a building and had been rescued and then recovered. Okay. That was the most remarkable one.
It sounds like something from Finding Nemo, that.
Yeah.
And then that turtle was named Rufus.
Brilliant. So Tali, we've got one more question and then we'll do a little wrap up just to finish off, what's been amazing chat. So Tiger wants to know, when you visited an aquarium over the summer in Japan, he saw a few loggerhead sea turtles displayed in a single aquarium. What would you say is the minimum dimension required per one sea turtle? Also, if kept in a group, are there any risks of fights or bullying between them?
So I think this is very dependent on the kind of institute. I don't know that there are, the more space, the better, really, is kind of always the answer. So space is always going to be a limitation in facilities, unfortunately. We kind of try and give them, initially we give them very little space so that they aren't able to move around too much, so that we can just like help them stabilize. But then as soon as they start to show interest in food, we try and give them as much space as possible to start getting their gut moving. And that's really important, that kind of movement. But you also don't want to preempt that. So we kind of have staged spaces that we give our turtles. I think in Japan, they cope really well with actually having smaller spaces for their turtles. I think depends on what stage of rehab the turtle's at and what the turtle needs. Turtles are generally solitary animals. They don't really do very well in groups. We keep our turtles apart, the hatchlings in particular, because of biosecurity and the transfer of infection. In our larger exhibit, where we have currently 3 rehabilitation turtles, it's interesting to see they have their own territories and they'll be territorial over that. But they're otherwise kind of will like swim around each other every now and again, but they're not really too fazed by each other. They generally, I think, mainly do their own thing. It's interesting. But yeah, as we saw with Yoshi, turtles travel oceans, so they need oceans of space, ideally.
Let's get rid of that. Perfect. Okay. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you so much for all your questions. Really, really good ones. And thank you for all the questions that got sent in. I suppose, Tali, just to wrap up on this, some sort of call to actions after this, some ways that people can get involved and stuff like that. Obviously, just sharing the amazing work that you guys do is one way. I know there's been some questions and comments about how people can physically get involved with you guys and what you do. I don't know if you want to tell people a little bit about that. I know that Expedition Project is starting to work with you guys in helping with a few sort of placements and getting people involved, so they can feel free to reach out, but maybe you want to give some more sort of details on that.
Yeah, you can check out our website for opportunities. We have internship programs and so there's a very practical hands-on component where one can get involved. We've got a lot of fundraising projects as well that we do, where we adopt a hatchling and stuff like that to help fund the work that we do. I think something that's also really, really easy and really important is education and awareness. So sharing our knowledge when one is leading by example, and the way we live and the way we buy and the way we consume. I think those are all really important individual things. But for me, the biggest thing that I just try and do is to share and stoke that fire and that love and that passion, because then it will automatically come for people to do that as well. So to just share the wonder of did you know a turtle can hold its breath for 8 hours if it's sleeping underwater, or just cool stuff, and to share that cool stuff with people gets them stoked. So there's lots of ways. Do check out our website. for many ways. And you're also welcome to email me directly if there are other sort of questions you might have or specific ways you'd like to get involved.
Perfect. So anyone watching this on replay, you can post some questions in the on the Expedition Project website on this live stream page, and then Tally will actually see those questions, when she's got a chance. So she can always have a look at those in the future, and get a conversation going that way. You can also reach out to myself. We're doing some nice work with Two Oceans Aquarium Education Foundation now. We've got some sort of intro modules and some courses where we're introducing different topics. One of which is turtles. If you've got any younger kids as well, or younger siblings, or nieces or nephews or anything, we've got some conservation kids courses coming out that we're working with the Two Oceans Aquarium Foundation, which is great. So it's introducing some conservation topics, including turtles, to some of the younger learners, which is really nice. And all the money that we're raising from that then goes back to the amazing work that they do in rehabilitation of turtles and other species at the aquarium. So there's lots and lots of ways to get involved. Do reach out after this if you've got any questions. But yeah, I suppose just to finish it off, thank you so much, Tally, for joining us and sharing all your wisdom and knowledge. It's been enthralling. We reached just the right amount of time now, because I think you're probably going to get cut off any minute with lovely load shedding. But just thank you so much. Any final words from you?
Just that it's been a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity to share. And to chat, and thank you, Emma, for your questions. And it was just really good fun. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you, everyone watching. Thank you, the various university societies who tuned in. Please get in touch. Keep posting your questions. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next time for episode 2. Who knows where that's going to take us? We'll keep you updated. Thanks, everyone, once again. See ya. Bye.
Bye.